Hello, my name is Shmel, and today we're going to talk about how to create your own cars in Photon 2. So, to go ahead and get started with doing that, we're going to need to find our Steam directory folder, wherever our Steam install is and Garry's mod is installed. So mine happens to be installed on my B drive here, so I'm in B Steam. If you're not sure where yours is, it's typically in C program files, x86, and then under Steam. And then from there, it's going to be under Steam apps, common, down to Garry's mod, and then Garry's mod, add-ons. And then once we're in the add-ons folder, we're going to go ahead and create a new folder for our Photon 2 vehicles. So I'm going to go up here, new folder. You can call this whatever you'd like. I'm going to call mine Shmel's Photon 2 cars, something like that. Okay, once we're inside that, we're going to create a few more folders here as well. So, new folder. This one's going to be called Lua. Once we're inside there, new folder called Photon V2. So Photon-V2, all lowercase. And then one inside of that called Library, like so. Okay. And then lastly, I'm going to create a folder called Vehicles, which is where Photon 2 will pull all of our vehicles from when it loads. Okay. Now that we have that set up, I'm going to minimize that and go into Garry's mod here. So I'm loaded into TDM's showroom map here. So similar to Photon 1, the process for creating a vehicle in Photon 2 is somewhat similar. You spawn a car, you change the body group's skin, materials, mostly that, and then generate some code from the in-game utility. So for this, let's go into vehicles. I'm going to use Lone Wolf's smart car today to make a nice European-inspired police car. So go down here to Smart for 2. This is the one that I want. We'll spawn that in there. Okay. So first thing I'll do is configure the body groups. So I'm going to hold C on mine, right click, go to body groups. Let's get the wing going on, and let's change up these wheels. Go to wheels here, and we'll do wheels 3. Okay. Now we will change the color of it, just to show you. So if I go into my color tool, and I like this orange here, so we'll go ahead and apply that. All right. And then if you wanted to, you can also change the skin. So whatever the hell that is. Oh, it's Lone Wolf's, wow, I didn't know that was a thing. Okay. I'm going to stick with skin 0 on this one, but you can change skin if you want to. And then for mine, I'm also going to change a submaterial, which is a new thing you can do in Photon 2, where you can apply submaterials and then just have the vehicle spawn like that and apply that through this menu here. So if I pull up the submaterial tool, which is a workshop add-on, I'm going to go down to glass, and then we'll just apply like this mesh texture to the glass. I should probably center that window there. Okay, so there's that. I'm happy with how that looks. Now we can go hold C, go up to Photon 2 here, and then go into Developer, and then click Create New Vehicle. That'll pull up the new Photon 2 Vehicle Code Creator, which is like the Express creator from Photon 1, but it's a different name and it looks different. So, starting from the top, we have to give it a unique vehicle name. This is not especially important at this stage of the process because this is really just going to be the file name of whatever we save the Lua file as, but just for demonstration purposes, I will put in Shmel's Smart for 2 Police. Okay, and then for title and category, those refer to the spawn menu. So if I defocus my text box there, wow, there we go. The title refers to the text over the spawn thumbnail. So like where it says Mercedes Sprinter box, that is part of the title. And then the category refers to where it appears on the left. So these are all categories. So like LW cars is a category and Photon 2 is a category. And then at this point, I should also mention that Photon 2 also comes with a hotkey to capture and release your cursor, which is F3. So you'll see me do that quite a bit. This is enabled by default for anybody who got Photon 2 after sometime in March of 2024. I think So if you hit F3 and it does not work, pull up your console and then do PH2, F3, cursor, enable 1, hit enter, and then it should work when you hit F3. And that's how you can interact with these windows if you ever run into a point where it won't let you click on it. So anyway, for my title, I'm going to create a new category called Photon 2 Schmal, which already exists there. Just ignore that. This is from a previous take because I've taken like 12 of these videos and messed up every single one. So 13th time is the charm. So this spawn category is going to be Schmal or Photon 2 Schmal Final. So that's how I know this is the last time I'm going to record this video. We're going to get it right this time. Okay, so for title, it can be whatever. We're going to call this Schmal Photon. Nah, let's do Smart for 2 Police. Okay, something really uninspiring like that. And then the next step is to pick a Siren. So if we go down here and then hit the Browse button, it'll pull up the Siren selection window. So if I just make this a little bit bigger. The Siren that I want today is the Whelen Epsilon alternate Siren. If you don't know what Siren to pick, you can click on any of these and then you can preview the tones using the preview panel on the right. So like this is one by Rin, some Japanese Siren. Yep, that checks out. Okay, so that's what that sounds like. This is like the sound off energy. I kind of like these ones, but I won't use these. So if you're not sure which one you want, just click through them and then preview the Siren. But we're going with the alternate tones of the Epsilon today, which sounds like this. Very cool. These are becoming more popular. I know they use them up in Seattle and I think Portland now too, and they're popping up everywhere. So I will hit select on that, and then the name of that will pop up into the Siren text box there. And then you can see here there's also a text box for setting a livery. This is if you want to use the Photon 2 livery system. This is an alternative to having to create a skin or use the native skin system. So the reason you might want to do that is because the skin system in Garry's mod is limited. You have only a certain number of slots you can use. If you look on here, this one has 12, which is a lot, but say you had a popular car with lots of skins that are lots of different liveries on it. It allows you to have a lot more than 12 or 13 like this actually is. And then you can also just use any material name and put that there. So just to show you how that might work, I'm going to use a common material in Photon, which is the glow material. So I'll use Photon Common Glow, and it's just like a generic Fulbright texture that Photon uses for rendering lights. And you'll see when I spawn this in, after I restart the game, that it will be glowing orange. So let's type that in for now. And then we pick our components that we want the vehicle to initially have once we generate the code. So for this, we are going to start with a Whelen Legacy Lightbar along with 2 Whelen Ions for the grill. So I'm going to look for Legacy in the search bar here, and then I'm going to pick the 44-inch variant, which is for smaller sized vehicles like the smart car. And you can see you get a little preview of the Legacy on the right, or whatever Lightbar you pick. If you don't know what Lightbar you want, you can sort these by category or type, assuming the component author has configured their type, which many have not, unfortunately, but most of the default ones have it. So if you sort by type, go down to Lightbar. These are all different Lightbars that you can choose from in various states and completion so far. But I want the Legacy for this one, so I'll go back to that, hit 44-inch, and then I'm going to hit select here. Okay, and that shows up in this little list box there. Next, we're going to add our 2 ions, so hit add again, and then I'm going to search for ion this time. Scroll down here, 2 Whelen Ion. And this is what is called a perimeter light, which means it's more of a smaller one, meant to kind of go anywhere around the vehicle. So it gives us a quick little preview of the default flash pattern there. That's fine. Hit select. Okay. And we're going to do that twice, just so we have both of those in there. All right. And then, as you might suspect, you can change these components at any time once you're in the code. You just add them here, so that way Photon will give you the initial spawn code for them, just to save you a few seconds of time. Okay, so now that we have everything here filled out, last step is to get inside of the vehicle, into the driver's seat, and then click the Generate Code button. And that'll pop up the code viewer window, which is a bit small for a video, so I'm just going to go ahead and copy the text to clipboard using this button here. And it'll say copied. I'll minimize that once I get out of the vehicle because it's very loud idle. Okay, so for a text editor, you can use whatever you'd like. Just to show you how this could work, I have Notepad pulled up here, so if I just paste that code into there using Control V, here is the code. This would work if you want to use Notepad. I use VSCode, which is a very popular text editor published by Microsoft. It's free, it's open source, and it has a lot of add-ons that I use, like GitHub Copilot is very cool, and then I use some Lua specific ones for Lua code formatting. So I'm going to use that for this video. And the way I like to have my VSCode set up for Photon projects, which I would recommend, is to open your add-ons folder using VS Code. So if I go to File, Open Folder, it'll have me browse for it. So I'm going to go back to where my Steam install is, or since I have my add-ons folder pinned to my sidebar, I'm just going to click that, go to add-ons, and then I'm going to select the folder that I created, which is Schmalz Photon 2 Cars, and then go into Lua, Photon 2, and Library. And so I'll pick Library because in case you happen to get into component creation or other Photon library assets like Sirens, you would want to have it in kind of one centralized place. So we'll just select this for now. And then when I go into the vehicles folder here, I'm going to do File, New Text File, and then paste that code again. And then VS Code has detected this as being Lua code, and it's already given me the syntax highlighting for it. So I'm going to go ahead and hit File, go to Save As, and then we're going to go into there, and then I'm going to save this as a name with all lowercase letters and no spaces. So I'm going to use Schmalz Smart for 2 police.lua. In theory, this could be the same as where you have name typed out up here at the top. Just use that as a file name. Okay, so there's that. Gonna hit save. And that is saved. Next, we need to restart Garry's mod, so that way the file is detected and loaded in properly. So go to quit, minimize that, and then we'll open Garry's mod back up again. So we'll get that moved over there, and then I'll position my VS Code window so it appears on the left, and then I'll make this code a bit bigger as well so you can see it on your screen. Something like that will work. We'll just resize that in there. And then as we load up this game, we'll talk briefly about this code. At the top, you get some hints about what to do with this code should you forget this video or should you never watch this video. It'll give you the steps to also save this file in the right place and then where to go from there. So at the top here, this is just some generic code that you want to have for every new Photon 2 vehicle file. Vehicle.title, that's the name we typed in there that shows up when you go into the spawn menu. Spawn category, again, that's what shows up on the left when you go into the spawn menu. Vehicle.vehicle, this is filled out automatically. It's just the name of the base vehicle that you're using. So this is what Lone Wolf chose when he made this Mark for 2 many years ago. That's what that is, and it's pulled again automatically, so you can just leave that the way that it is. Vehicle.author, this is pulled from your Steam name. You can change that if you would like. Vehicle.properties, this is where the skin and color are defined. So skin, we stuck with skin 0. Color, this is the orange color that I picked and used or applied to the vehicle. Vehicle.bodygroups, this is where it configures the body groups that the vehicle will spawn with. The format in Photon 2 is the body group name goes as the table key in the quotes and the brackets, and then it sets the index of the body group. All body groups in Garry's mod are or in Source Engine rather, will start at 0 and then go to any whatever number of different options there are. So by default, these are typically 0. Sometimes they can be 1, like this panels here defaults to 1, which is fine. But the one that I changed was the wing, and I enabled that, so it is now 1, and then wheels is 2. So we selected wheels 3, but it shows 2 because it starts at 0. So 0, 1, 2 makes that the third option. And then down into vehicle.submaterials. This means that the window material that I used is submaterial index 7, and it is using the material name of models/wireframe, which is the generic wireframe material in Source Engine. Vehicle.livery, this is the material path that I typed out, so Photon Common Glow. Vehicle.siren, this is the epsilon alt siren name inserted automatically. And then down to vehicle.components. So even though we only selected 3 components, you can see we actually have 4 that are defined here. And that is because the Siren in Photon 2 is now actually its own component. That's because the Siren tones or the Siren sound actually comes from the model in game, which is kind of hard to tell, but that's actually how it works internally. And because the code for the Siren and for lighting components is very, very, very similar, it's almost exactly the same. They're treated as one and the same for the most part. So we'll talk about this a little bit more in a minute here. So Siren is first, and then we have the legacy, and then the ion, or both ions rather. And then if you're familiar with Photon 1, this should look pretty similar. So we have the position, which is the vector coordinates, x, y, and z. Angles, the orientation of the prop or the model, which is the pitch, yaw, and roll angle. So pitch, yaw, and roll. Scale is the size of it. And then you can see on Siren, it says Siren 1. This just points to the Siren that we have defined up here. If we were to set up multiple Sirens, which we won't do in this video, this is how you would adjust where this points to in your file. But we'll just ignore that for this video. And then lastly down here, you can see there is a vehicle.props section. There's no GUI buttons for any of this because the props are a bit too complicated for what the tool was designed for. We'll talk about this in a minute as well. Okay, so there's an overview of the folder or the file. Now that we're back in game, I'm going to go ahead and spawn the vehicle that we created. So I'll hold my Q menu, go into vehicles, and then we now have a Schmal Photon 2 Schmal final category. The other category that I created is gone because I deleted the folder after I started Garry's mod, so just pretend it didn't exist. Anyway, here is the vehicle that we created using the title. So go ahead and spawn that. When I do, you can see that we have the body group applied with the wing and the wheels. The vehicle is orange as defined. The skin glows in the dark, so if I go into the shadow here, you can see it's still full bright orange in here. The windows are the submaterial of the wireframe, which is being overridden. And then we have 4 floating components here. We have the Siren speaker, we have the legacy, and we have both of the ions. So next thing I'm going to do here, I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of the glowing livery and the window material since we're done with showing you how that works. So if I go up into here, where it says vehicle.livery, I'm just going to comment out that section with 2 dashes. And then I'm going to do the same thing under vehicle.submaterials. So I'll just do 2 comments in there by 7. So you'll see that when I hit save, those changes are not applied. For the most part, changes you save in a vehicle file will apply automatically instantly as soon as the vehicle file is saved. In this case, they are not because both the submaterial and the livery require what is called a hard reload in Photon 2. And in Photon 2, to trigger a hard reload, you just save a file twice back to back very fast. So if I do Control S rapidly here, you'll see that triggers a hard reload, which then resets the vehicle livery back to the default one, and then resets the window material as well. In mine, I have a Photon option enabled to spit out all of this console status text, so I can do that by going up to here to Photon 2, and then it's in logging and errors, and then display log and console. If you're making Photon cars, I would recommend turning that on just for the duration of that. I wouldn't recommend leaving it on because it will spam tons of stuff in your console because it's just doing all kinds of things. And I use this for debugging purposes, but for the most part, people who don't really care that much about Photon won't have a whole lot of use for all this spam in their console. So just know that that's what that is there for. And yes, it is an option. Okay. So now that we have that fixed, let's go ahead and position these components. So I'm going to go into no clip here, zoom in. So for this light bar, we'll start with that. So again, the coordinates for the position are X, Y, and Z. In the context of a vehicle, the X and Y coordinates adjust or X adjusts side to side, so the driver to passenger side like this. The Y adjusts the front to back positioning, and then Z adjusts the up and down positioning. So to bring this Whelen Legacy light bar down, I'm going to lower this Y value of 110 and bring it to something more like 79.2, which I figured out in advance. So 79.2. And then when I hit save on this, you'll see it immediately pushes it right down there. Okay, now we need to rotate it so that way it's facing the front. And so we're going to do that by giving it a 90-degree rotation in the yaw axis, so that way it faces forward, like that. Okay, and then, oops, get rid of that. All right. And then we need to move it back a little bit as well, so that way it's more towards the back of the car. And we'll do that by reducing the Y value into the negatives. So we'll use a Y value of -14. Hit save, puts it back there, which is a lot better. And then when I zoom in here, you can see that it is just a little bit too big for this car at this point. So we can make the light bar smaller by reducing the scale. So I'm going to use a scale of 95%, which is the same as 0.95. So do that, hit save, and you see it shrinks down. And this is about where I want it to be. Okay. So next thing we're going to do is move the ions so they're forward and down into the grill area. So for the first ion, that's going to be on the driver's side. I'm going to decrease the Z value to, let's use 30 for that. Move it forward by changing the Y to a positive 65.3. And then X of -8 to place it towards the driver's side. So when I hit save, it is now right there. And then we'll do the same thing to this other ion, but we'll put it on the passenger side. So I'll use a positive X value of 8 for that, and then change the Y to 65.3. And that's fine, and then change the Z to 30. Okay, so now they're mostly mirrored. And then because the grill has a bit of a curve to it, we will adjust the yaw angle of the ions so that way they sit a little more flush with that. So to do that, I'm going to change the yaw of this one to be 4 degrees. Yeah, 4 degrees. And then to mirror that, we're going to use -4 on the passenger side. So if I zoom out real quick, when I save that, you'll see they both turn outward and are about where they should be. Okay, so just to see where we're at now, we'll get in. There's our siren. Lights are working. Grill is flashing red. We'll talk about that in a minute. Light bar works. I can change my modes there, change the siren tones. Okay, so far so good. Now we have a floating siren speaker there. So on most cars, they will typically be somewhere mounted behind the grill in the engine block area. In Photon 2, you can certainly just move this thing down into there and hide it, and that'll work just fine. Sometimes they're mounted on the roof, which is less common, but is a thing you'll sometimes see where it just faces forward. Other times, you will see that it is mounted on a push bar. So for this one, obviously, we're going to do a push bar. So to do that, we will use the vehicle.props section. So you can see it gives us some example code here, so that way we know what it looks like. So I'm just going to copy that example code and then open up this vehicle.props table and then paste that code into there. I'll fix that formatting. And I have a shortcut key or like a shortcut on my VS Code where I can just do Control/ to uncomment a block of code. If you don't have that set up, just delete these individual dashes there to uncomment a block of code. Okay. All right, so you'll see when I do that and then I hit save, so I do Control S, that a push bar suddenly appears in front of the vehicle. Now this is not exactly the one that I want, so to find the one that I do want, I'm going to pull up the spawn menu, go into here. I'm going to use TDM props for this because here's a good setup for this. It's easy to find. So if I go down to the bottom here, he should have some more push bar options here. And the one I want is this one. So I'm going to right click on it, go copy to clipboard, and then go into here. And then under the model, in between these two quotes, I will replace the default text with what I copied, which is just pushbar.mdl with this model path. Then when I hit save, you will see that it changes to this new one. Okay, so we'll get this positioned now. So let's move it back a touch. We're going to use a Y value of 74 and Z value of 11 to get it closer to the ground. And then for angles, we're going to change the yaw to -90. And that is closer, and then it's a bit small, so we're going to increase the scale to 1.3. And there we go. So there's our ions visible, and there's our push bar looking good. Next, we'll move the Siren speaker down to the push bar, so it's mounted on the front there. So I'm going to change my Siren prototype component to use some different coordinates here. So we'll use a X value of -10 to put it closer to the driver's side. We'll use a Y value of 74, same as the push bar, and then we'll use a Z value of 24.5 to keep it closer to the ground. So hit save. And then for this one, we're going to rotate it so it's outward, and then rotate it so it's upside down and hangs kind of off this middle bar of this push bar. So to do that, we will change the roll angle to be 180 and the yaw to be -90. And then we'll also make it a bit bigger with a scale of 1.5. I'll hit save, and now that is right where we want it to be. Cool. So get back in. Everything still works. All right. So the next thing here is that the lights are red and blue and flashing red together on the grill. Because this is a European-inspired setup, we're going to change those to be blue and then get the flash patterns changed on the grill. So get back out. Starting with the ions. So how do you know what colors you can change the components to? So to know that, we will use the component browser, which you saw briefly when you selected the components initially with the creator utility. So you can also open that same browser by holding C, going up to Photon 2, and then down to where it says libraries, and then we'll click the browse components option there, and that'll pull up the component browser here as well. So starting with ions, like I said, I'll search for ion here, and then pull up that, and then this is the ion. So in Photon 2, instead of colors like it was called in Photon 1, they're called states. The reason for that is because, as I said, the Siren components and lighting components are now the same base code for the most part. So in the context of a light, a state would be a color, like red or blue. In the context of a siren, a state would actually be a siren tone, like wail or yelp. So because of that, they're called or given a generic name of just states now. So just know that's what that means. So if I hit the state slots option on this tree here, you'll see it'll drop down. This one gives us 3 available state slots of red, blue, and white. The reason you don't see that, so like if I get in the vehicle here and I change the lighting modes from stage 1, 2, and 3, you only see red flashing in there, and that's because the default patterns for these ions only uses the one color. So pulling this back up, this is a bit more outside the scope of this video, but there are multiple patterns or sequences available for each individual component for the most part. So if I go into light or sequences and then drop down light here, you can see the ones that are called Duo typically have multiple colors set up on them. So this one is flashing red and blue. I think this one also does as well. So depending on how or which patterns or sequences you're using for a component might change the colors that it uses. The ion is special because it's such a configurable component in reality that you can have multiple colors on it. You can have it split. You can have it one color, whatever. Just know that for this video, the ion is just the one color. So to change that one color, we're going to change state slot 1 to be B for blue here. So to do that, I'm going to minimize this. I'm going to go into my code. And on this first ion, I'm going to do states equals, open up a table there using curly braces, and then put B inside quotes like that. And then put a comma after that, so that way it's valid Lewis syntax. And then when I hit save on this, you'll see the right ion is now blue. And all the patterns on it are also blue, the way it's configured. So it's using state slot 1, which is B now, which means all of these default patterns are using blue. So then we'll apply that same thing here. Let me turn off the engine there. So I'll just duplicate this line of code from there, move that down into my second ion, and hit save. And you'll see it's also blue as well. And we'll apply that same logic to the legacy. So if I pull up the component browser again, and I look for the legacy, this one's a bit more straightforward. So when I go into state slots, you can see there are two, red and blue. And this one intuitively refers to the driver's side, or the right side here. I'm looking at it, so red is applied to this right, and then blue is applied to this left. So to make this light bar all blue, I would just go into this component here, do states, same thing, open up some curly braces, and then I'll make 2 entries in here. So I'll go ahead and just make a new line, and then I'll type out 1, and I'll do equals B for blue, and then same thing down here, but do 2 equals B for blue. It's a bit redundant, but we'll just do this for clarity here. So 1 and 2 are both B. So when I hit Control S, you'll see this is now a blue-only light bar. So now we have blue-colored components. I'm happy with that. Next, we need to change these ions so that way they have a back and forth flash pattern, which looks a bit more appropriate. So in Photon 1, you would do this by having different phases configured for components like A and B. So you'd have like A for the left and B for the right. And that would be a pre-configured alternating pattern. Photon 2 also has support for that, but the preferred and recommended method is to use phase degrees. And to demonstrate what that is, here's a little graphic that I made in Photoshop. I'm not very good with motion graphics yet, so this is what it has to look like. So phase degrees means that you take a pattern, you envision it as like a circle where you start at the top and then it rotates all the way around until you get to the end where it starts again back at the top. And with phase degrees, you rotate where that circle starts at. So you just like move it to the right a little bit. So with a phase 90, it is now about 1/4 off from the original pattern. At phase 180, it is now fully 1/2 off from the original, which is how you typically get a full alternating pattern, which goes back and forth, is with a phase of 180. So to show you that in Photon 2 with these components here, I'm going to change the phase of the ion on the passenger side to be 180. So we'll leave the first one, the driver's side, as is, because the phase is always 0 by default, so you don't need to define that explicitly. So I'll do phase equals 180 for the second ion, hit save. And you can see they're now flashing exactly opposite of one another. And then if I change this to be like 90, for example, you can see that they're a little bit off, but more close together. If I do phase 45, you'll see it's even more of a close together pattern. That's just a little bit off. But since 180 is opposite, we'll pick 180. And you can manually define phases like this for every component. However, just know that not all components are configured to necessarily support this method of phasing. It's somewhat newer, and it takes a little bit more planning to set up a component so that way the patterns work like this correctly. So for the most part, you can do this, but just know that it might not work exactly correctly on all components, so just keep that in mind. But for ions, it is set up for these default patterns, so it's a good example here. Okay, so those are now flashing back and forth the way that I want them, and the light bar up there is fine. So lastly here, I want to elevate it just a little bit more, and I will add another component. Let's say I wanted to add a dedicated spotlight component. So to do that, I'll pull back up my browser, and if I don't know, what spotlight components are out there, I can sort by type as well, assuming the components are correctly categorized, and then I'll go down to where it says spotlight. So by default, there are currently 5 components as of making this video that are spotlights. So the first 4 are like traditional Par 46 spotlights that you would see mounted on the driver and passenger side. This is more of a North American kind of style. But there's also another one, which is a component that Noble made called the Golight 2000, which is more of like a fire EMS kind of light, also one that you might see in Europe. So I want to use this for my spotlight, and I'll put it on top of the light bar. So to get a new component into my code, I'm going to first go or highlight over the name here, or the ID rather, of this component. So where it says Photon _ Golight _ 2000 GT, we need to make sure that text is exactly the same when I put it in my code. So we can do that by hovering over it and then left clicking to copy that component name, and I'll put it in my clipboard. And then I'll go down into my code here and under components, and then under the last ion, I'll make a new table there. I'm going to type component equals, open up some quotes, and then paste that there, and there's the exact ID. And then comment that, and I'll also do position equals, and we'll do a vector of, for this one, since I already did this in advance, I know it's going to be 0, -14, and then 80.9 to be right on top of the light bar. And then for angles, we'll just use a angle, or an angle of only zeros. So 0, 0, 0. We'll leave the scale as just 1 on this as well. Okay, so this is all set up. And then when I hit Control S on here, you'll see the Golight suddenly pops up right there. And then when I get inside of it, and I activate any of the scene lighting features, which by default on Photon, or in Photon, is right shift plus any of the arrow keys. So like right shift left will turn on left scene lighting. And this component here, the Golight, will rotate to the left, which is very cool. And you can also see that the alley lights on the Legacy are also on. So there's that. I can disable that. I can do forward scene lighting, and the Golight will rotate forward and down a little bit. Or if I do flood lighting by holding right shift plus the up button for a second, it'll turn on flood lighting. So the light bar goes into flood, and the Golight rotates up a little bit for even more spread. So that's pretty cool. And then, as you might expect, if I do right shift plus right, it will rotate to the right. Like that. So it is very cool. All right. So there we go. We have our spotlight, our light bar, and our 2 ions along with our push bar. And that is how you create a basic car for Photon 2. In future videos, we'll talk more about how you can configure these patterns, make your own, and then some more advanced techniques. But this is a good start, and that's all for now.